Yeah, this is James Ray Light. I just wanted to speak on the shootings, and I just wanted to tell people to practice nonviolence. Don't buy guns and don't shoot people, and don't judge people either if you can try not to, because the whole point is this: is people want to condemn the shooter, but they have to forgive the shooter also. He's a human being as well. So people want to definitely pass judgment on one person and feel sorry for another. But people really need to understand that they're trying to master their fear of death, and that's why they buy a gun, and that's why they join a group, or they want to do a tactical exercise that kills people. But that's never going to make them conquer their own fear of death or accept life, because that's really what they need to do, because otherwise what they're trying to do is never going to make them accept death or be able to accept life. So that's what I'm saying. So try to do that, and people should try to balance their emotions so they don't freak out about something that they can't control because it's God's will. So, when people hear about a terrible, circumstance on TV, of a shooting, a mass shooting, whether it's propaganda, whether it's real or not, whether it's a government tactical exercise in real time or not, it's just a lone gunman who's a schizophrenic or, whatever it is, or some agenda that someone has, or some power group that's trying to harm someone or whatever, people need to understand that it's not up to them, it's God's will. Okay, so the Creator created this earth. Humanity is just visiting, and people need to understand it's very simple. It's not in your control. And if people can control themselves and start with self-control and end with self-control, and that's all they can do. Because if one person controls themselves, and everyone starts to control themselves more often, and they don't join power groups, they don't join terrorist organizations or gangs or any of these other governmental agencies that just kill people at will, that are just following orders, right? But that's, people people need to understand that they're here just to survive physically, and the only reason they need to survive is because they have to, because otherwise they'll go extinct. So it only makes sense to invest in survival and to practice nonviolence, compassion, and non-judgment. And to practice balance, moderation, and to just forgive people. Because people can forgive God, but they can't forgive humanity. But they love Jesus. So that's wonderful. So they praise Jesus on high. They judge someone else for being a murderer. And I'll say, but God wrote all of this. He wrote a Messiah. He wrote the murderer who shot 50 people in Vegas, and all these school shootings of innocent children being killed, and the evil that walks the earth doing this. So it's not up to us, it's up to God. So what I'm telling people is, if you can forgive God, you should forgive everyone, even the shooter of those people, because compassion is supposed to be universal. So that's what people need to practice themselves, is forgiving human beings. See, because what they want to do is they say, well, we love someone, we want to give someone a trophy if they're a sports figure. We love Jesus because he was, he had his ethical morals were superior, or he was miraculous, or he raised the dead and he gave people food. He did good acts which were miraculous, which were were supernatural. So he was an exception to the rule. Okay? But just like a Jewish king who's powerful, yet if they're greedy, if they kill people, if they're womanizing, if they're drunks, if they gamble too much, if they lose money, they go bankrupt, that could be a real problem for them and for the country that they're trying to lead, or the nation, or the continent. So what people need to understand is it all starts with self-control. So if people have right view and right action, meaning if you have a right view, you see and act correctly. So you see your life correctly in the right perspective, and then you change your behavior so you act correctly within your life. Okay, so people, some people can think whatever they want to, but life is just here to live. So you're just here to survive, you're here to transcend the human experience if you can through, good deeds, through art, through creative means, through helping your community, your family, from trying to be a good productive person, right, in your household, in your job, in your family, and in society. That's what people are doing here. So it's like, beyond that, they're trying to get a spiritual means, to try to get an afterlife, or trying to be rebirthed, or God has already decided this. And what people need to focus on is their everyday, day-to-day functioning of practicing nonviolence, not buying guns, not shooting people, and not overreacting, and not committing suicide, not overeating, not staying up all night, showing up to work and not having the idea of killing someone. Because their anger, if you invest in your anger, just like if you buy a cache of weapons, it's only going to harm you or someone else. That's all it can do. Unless you're a gun collector who just sells the stuff on eBay or something like that, and you just, keep all the guns on your walls, or unless you just, work for a governmental agency where you have to carry a gun, fine. Okay, it's part of your job, but then don't discharge it unless you need to, unless it's a life or death situation and you have no other option. And it's just like diplomacy. People always need to use diplomacy first before they're thinking of nuclear means, to try to solve a diplomatic problem. So that's what I'm saying is, all these measures are put into place so that people can, use the right tool, not so they grab the weapon first. Okay, so God put all this stuff and humanity on this earth as tools to survive, and animals here to survive, the earth to survive, and everything to try to not go extinct. Beside the dinosaurs and other things, everything will go extinct eventually. But what I'm saying is all of this is temporary. It's all interconnected. All of the universe is energy, human beings, animals, nature, the earth, all of these things, other planets. So dimensions, all this stuff, So people need just to practice nonviolence. So, it's just, they're shocked by when they see people on the news, killing people in an isolated incident of 50 people dying. But what they really need to practice is acceptance, because it's really it's not up to them. Okay, so I disagree with it, of course. Obviously, you go, oh my God, that's terrible. You see people, being shot to death, whether it's true or not, whether it's fake propaganda by the news or CIA, who cares? Or the government. But what I'm saying is people can only control themselves. So you can't control what the government does. You can't control what you see on cable or CNN. So all you can do is not be a part of the problem. Okay, so that's really what people need to focus on, because it's like, listen, you can go through life and, you can practice all of the nonviolence or violence you want to, but all of it builds merit or it's punishment. So it's karma. So once people understand karma, just like they understood how to play baseball or eat McDonald's or, learn Jesus, read books of Orthodox Judaism or Middle Eastern spirituality, they'll understand very simple living. Okay, and the practice of karma, which is, every action has a consequence, and your karma builds on, past lives, future lives, this current life you're living. It's all cumulative. So a good deed will enable good karma, and a bad deed would enable bad karma. So it's a mirror. So whatever you look into it, it shows it back to you. Whatever you do as an action, that action returns to you. Whether it's good, bad, neutral, it doesn't matter. So what I'm saying is people should try to remain neutral in their views. So they're not either pro this or anti that. So it's not either we hate this person, we love this person. Right? Because that's what there tends to be an all or nothing proprietary orthodoxy mentality in this country and in the world that's prevailed because of Jewish propaganda and Zionism and orthodoxy that has enabled people to view the world in a wrong way, to view it as all or nothing, just as Jewish law, just as the Quran, the Christian Bible, or the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, and that's what societies have convinced themselves of. But there's also Buddhism from India, yoga from India, Hinduism from India, Taoism from China, Jainism, Anism, all these other spiritualities that are very valid, okay? So, especially Buddhism and yoga. So people need to practice those because it's, people have invested all this money and time in the Middle East, but if you look at what has happened in the Middle East, it's been a disaster, quite honestly. Financially, socially, structurally, they have architecture that's better than how human beings have acted. Isn't that true? So human beings want to argue about the West Bank or the Jerusalem Wailing Wall, or, Revelation, all these, or taxation or prices, or, all of these things for thousands of years with armies and with Jewish judgment against each other, but that's never going to work because it hasn't. Okay, so it's not my opinion. It's history has dictated this over and over again. So this country shouldn't consider itself an Israeli-Palestinian state. Never. It was the most ignorant idea that God created was let's put men in the desert and then they'll war with each other till the end of times. It's ignorant. So you can't accept all of the Creator's will as correct. It's not. God is half wrong. So it doesn't make sense. He's a duality. So, God is the universal Creator, and I love God. He's all respect to Him. But what I'm saying is His plan and His methods and the way human history has developed itself is an aberration. It's half aberrative. Okay, so it's half functioning, or 2/3 functioning and a third not functioning. That's true. So it's like that. In a day, you can have, in a week, you'll have 2 good days, 2 bad days, 2 days that are neutral, and then 1 really good or bad day, right? Basically, and that's your life, kind of. If you look at it that way, it's quarters. 25% good, 25% bad, 25% neutral, and 12% very good or 12% very bad. 12.5, right? Something like that. If you used 100%, pie chart or something like that, or percentage breakdown. If it's a rule of thirds and quarters, that would be it. 33% or 25% times 4, or 33% times 3. But what I'm saying is this: if you used 100%, percentage circle chart per se, to use that metaphor for life. But what I'm saying is, people just need to practice nonviolence, not buy guns, not shoot each other, not commit suicide, and not make critical fails, because that's what you see on the news, whether it's real or not. Okay, because in most days, human beings just, feel sick, they feel tired, they're kind of, they just want to eat, they want to go through their job, whatever, do their daily activities so they can survive. That's basically their motivation, is survival, to pay the bills, raise their children, protect their family, do something good in society, express themselves culturally, socially, musically, artistically, whatever, so have a career, do whatever they need to do, try to seek power if they have that, but they need to have power within themselves, by practicing nonviolence, moderate living, a moderate path, and not getting caught up in gambling, drugs, weapons, gangs, all these things, ego, trying to seek power, not being womanizers, not being drunkards, not being gamblers, not being, violent people who shoot people. None of these things, because most people are not that. Okay, so these are the exceptions to the rule, that you see the propaganda on TV, unless they're just reporting what's happening in the world, and it's a crazy world, okay? Human beings acting weirder than animals sometimes, and it's documented on the news, whether it's real or not, who knows? But that's what I'm saying, is human beings are smarter, supposedly have the ability to reason, but a lot of the stuff you see on TV doesn't make sense, because people act stupider than animals sometimes. It doesn't make sense. If God gave you the ability to reason, then use reasoning, and use logical action instead of delusion, So it's just that way, because America has deluded itself with Jewish Zionism. The Moses commands were correct, okay? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. So then you don't base industries around killing and stealing, okay? Or judgment. That's not correct. That's not what you do, okay? That's what they've done in this country, and that's what this idealism of Jewish orthodoxy and Zionism and Christianity has polluted people by not following the rules. Do you understand? So it's not the actual Judaism or Christianity that's the problem. It's people not following the rules of those faiths or of those laws, or moral codes of God. So that's what I'm saying, is human beings always want to blame somebody else, but they want to blame each other instead of, and there's no blame to give. This is just living. So that's what I'm saying, is, this is just a human spiritual experience that people are going through. You'll leave with nothing. You're trying to just go through your life and trying to accept things is what people need to do, instead of, I'm going to judge this person, I'm going to forgive that person, I'm going to congratulate that person with a trophy, or I'm going to, that person will be on a death sentence. We love Jesus, he'll be the King of Kings. That person will win a Grammy, person will win an Oscar. This person will end up homeless, that person will end up judged, that person will get beaten to death, that person will get shot in public. Just crazy. People would say it's karma and their actions dictated that, or it's past lives. But, people just need to use practical nonviolence. Because that's really, for all the arguments and everything everyone says, it's really action that speaks louder than words. So, people need to understand that, is to control themselves, because you can't control what happens to society, you can't control the government, you can't control God's will. So, people have to accept it no matter how painful it is. It's a practice of acceptance, moderation, right view, and right action. And, people controlling what they eat, what they do every day, practicing nonviolence, inner peace, and self-control and balance. That's what they really need to do. And have structure in their life so they don't become isolated, they don't become, suicidal or homicidal, they don't have a cache of weapons, and it's just people doing delusional things that are totally aberrant, that serve no practical purpose of survival, or you know, or power groups trying to, you know, tell people that this person's superior, that person's negated. It's never going to work. You know, and all these operations of the government trying to negate people, destroy certain cultures, and all of this is a nonsense because the karma is negative. So, you know, just like all these companies that started wars in the Middle East, then they have hurricanes that destroy whatever money that they made from it. Do you understand? So all of this, the karmic action will come back to them. Okay, so if you do bad, that bad energy will come back in the form of a hurricane, just like you see in Florida and Texas. If that was because of all the KKR and all the double cost losses and people starting a war in the Middle East, and even if they're trying to give people freedom, even if they had the right intention, it still turned out to trillions of dollars of loss, 500,000 Iraqis dead or 1 million Iraqis dead, you know, 7,000 Americans wounded critically or died, and another, who knows how many were wounded. So what I'm saying is, you know, and if that happened, that kind of destruction happened in 10 years, and then you have God giving them hurricanes.